Well, first of all, of course, it's a grave tragedy for the people of Nepal, and our sympathies go to them entirely. It's also had, an impact in both Pakistan and in India, particularly in the state of Bihar, where as well there have been more than about 50 dead already. And it underlines once again how the whole subcontinent is one ecological region. And everyone should try and come together at this moment of really grave sadness and tragedy and big problems being foretold for the Himalayan region as a whole. India has already ahead of all the other countries in being able to provide assistance. Tens of sorties have been flown already by Indian Air Force and in emergency relief planes, providing, including among other relief measures, some 50 tons of water has already been delivered because it's one of the grave shortages. The phase at the moment, of course, is rescue for people who must be still trapped in buildings in Kathmandu itself, but also in many of the small villages because the epicenter was about 50 kilometers away from Kathmandu. Unfortunately, many of the older buildings, including UNESCO heritage sites, have been damaged, they've crumbled. But it does revive again the concerns that this is a fragile ecology. There are too many people crowded into Kathmandu and the areas around it. Nepal has 28 million people, but it's one of the fastest growing populations, and it really cannot be sustained in this manner. There have to be found and followed more sustainable ways of living there. Of course, many other countries are coming to the aid of Nepal at this moment. Many European countries, many Christian charities, China has come in, Israel, a number of other countries which have had a lot of experience with earthquakes and are in a position to help with the technical aspects of rescue as well. Maybe Iran could be a big help, since it has, among the most, unfortunately, a lot of experience in post-earthquake situations. Geopolitical rivalries are a fact of life. They exist. Nepal has only two neighbors, China and India, and both have interests there, but both also at this moment have responded with sympathy to the tragedy that has struck Nepal. But what it has clarified, and especially the swiftness with which India has been able to respond, also more substantively than China at the moment, is because Nepal opens out naturally onto India, whereas China has to really struggle to build infrastructure to access Nepal through the much higher mountain peaks that infrastructure has to go through. Nepal is also, of course, culturally and in every other way, civilizationally, religion, in all of these ways, it's linked to India. It's part of the Indian subcontinent. It's really not part of the Sinosphere, if there is such a thing. There have been avalanches on Mount Everest as well. And of course, mountaineering, climbing Everest, but many other peaks and, mountain trekking are a big part of the Nepali economy, some 8 to 10% of its revenues. But even more importantly, they provide employment. They provide the opening to the rest of the world, since many Europeans, many Westerners come here to trek. It also is, of course, important in the sense of identity that gives to Nepal. So that is going to be severely damaged by this earthquake. It's also going to be a difficult time because the monsoon is going to be setting in the next 2 months, and a lot of the clearing up and rehabilitation work must happen right now. Other than that, Nepal does not have a very sophisticated economy, but it will raise questions about the sustainability of the economic activity that takes place around it, the kind of small industrialization that is underway, and it will raise big questions about hydropower projects. What kind of projects? What are the safeguards that need to be built in? And this is very important in the India-Nepal relationship, but it's also important because eventually I think China wants to get into the building of the hydropower, even if all the rivers flow south into India. Well, Haiti is a point of comparison, but it's in the northern hemisphere, and it certainly received much more assistance than Nepal is likely to get. Haiti, unfortunately, continues to suffer from the after effects of the massive earthquake that it had some years ago. In the case of Nepal, countries have come forth promising 1 million, 3 million, 4 million in assistance following the earthquake. It's not clear that there will be very much economic aid following up. There will hopefully be some assistance available from multilateral institutions, the IMF, the World Bank. I think Nepal will look, and China will certainly want to come in with its newly established Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank. Hopefully, China will offer some assistance to Nepal, and certainly India must offer assistance for rehabilitation, but also for economic development. And the more that we are able to build infrastructure on the border, the India-Nepal border, roads linking the two countries, that in some ways would be the greatest stimulus for the economy on the border districts to flourish. Well, at present, India and Nepal have bilateral trade of about $5 billion. Nepali exports to India are only about 500 million. The rest is a lot of petroleum exports from India. And then there are a lot of remittances because large numbers of Nepalis have served in the Indian army. Pensions are being paid out all the time. I think India and Nepal already have free trade and open border. So, the usual prescriptions are not going to make any difference. But both countries do need to move more scientifically, more quickly, certainly, but also with real feasibility studies for the hydroelectric projects, because that is Nepal's only resource. And maybe what they need to do is not large projects, but a number of small ones, all flow of the river projects, so that there is minimizing any damage, any ecological damage to this mountain region, where they need to move very carefully, very sustainably. Unfortunately, we will hear of more deaths and injuries, and one can only hope that the completely fractured political landscape of Nepal may be brought together to move more constructively and to deliver better governance.